My name is Sable Whitmore. I'm 29 years old. On the night I got promoted to senior creative director at Driftline Agency, the youngest in the company's history, my parents didn't toast me. They didn't even look at me. They stood in the corner of the restaurant, my father's hand on my brother's shoulder, announcing to anyone who would listen that my brother had just been accepted into Northwestern's MBA program. My promotion, the one I'd worked 6 years for, the one that came with a $94,000 salary, and my name on the door, was mentioned once, in passing like a footnote. My mother leaned over to my aunt and said, loud enough for me to hear, Sable's always been the creative one. It's cute. But Denny's going to do something real. I smiled. I nodded. I cut my steak into pieces I never ate. 8 years later, my brother showed up at my apartment door with a secret that made my parents realize they had miscalculated everything. But by then, the math had already been done. Let me go back. Not to the restaurant, to the years that made the restaurant inevitable. I was born in 1996, second child, 2 years after my brother Dennis. We grew up in Naperville, Illinois, comfortable suburb, the kind where the public schools had AP programs and the parents had opinions about college rankings. My father worked in commercial real estate. My mother taught middle school English part-time and spent the other part curating the family's narrative. In that narrative, Dennis was the future. I was the background. I remember being 10 years old, coming home with a portfolio of watercolors my art teacher had selected for the district showcase. 6 pieces, my name on a printed card beside them, in an actual gallery space at the public library. My mother glanced at the portfolio. These are lovely, honey. Then she called my grandmother to tell her Dennis had made the travel soccer team. That was the template. For the next 12 years it held. Dennis got a car for his 16th birthday. Black Honda Accord, 2008, $19,200. My parents threw a party in the garage. My father gave a speech about responsibility and what it meant to invest in someone's potential. I turned 16 2 years later. My mother handed me a bus pass and said, "You're so independent, Sable. You'll figure it out." I worked at a print shop after school, 3 days a week. I figured it out. When I applied to art schools, my parents sat at the kitchen table reviewing Dennis's business school applications. Every essay, every recommendation letter, every campus visit, planned, funded, executed as a family project. When I told them I'd gotten into the School of the Art Institute of Chicago, my mother said, "Oh, that's great. Is that accredited?" It is one of the top art and design schools in the country. I didn't say that. I said, yes, it is. Then I went to my room and looked up every scholarship I could find. Over 4 years, my parents contributed $8,000 to my tuition. Dennis's MBA, $62,000. I worked 22 hours a week at a cafe near campus. I graduated with a 3.8 GPA, a design portfolio that landed me my first real job before commencement, and $74,000 in student loan debt. Dennis graduated with a 3.1 and 0 debt, and my parents acted like he'd discovered fire. By the night of my promotion dinner, I had already learned to stop expecting anything from them. What I hadn't expected was how much it would still hurt when they delivered anyway. June 14th, 2019. Friday. The celebration was my idea. I'd made the reservation at Kessler's, a nice Italian place in River North. Long table, 12 people. Colleagues, my parents, my brother, a few friends. I paid for the whole thing. I thought it was a way of sharing something with them. Of saying, look, this is what I built. My father sat at the far end of the table, scrolling his phone for most of dinner. My mother talked to my aunt about a kitchen renovation. Dennis showed up 30 minutes late, sat next to my father, and by 8 p.m. the conversation had orbited entirely to his acceptance letter. Northwestern, Kellogg School of Management. My father actually stood up. I watched him toast my brother at my dinner table, with champagne I had ordered. Afterward, my mother caught me near the coat check. It was a lovely dinner, Sable. You've always known how to put things together. She patted my arm. Then, You'll find something more stable eventually, I'm sure. Design is so uncertain. I was already the senior creative director of a mid-size agency with a client roster that included 3 national brands. I said, "Thanks, Mom." Then I went home and sat at my kitchen table for a long time. I didn't cry. I didn't call anyone. I opened my laptop and started a folder. I named it something boring: Projects. Archive. I didn't know yet why I was doing it. I just knew that something had shifted in me, and I wanted to record what I saw clearly before it blurred. In July 2019, I bought a one-way Amtrak ticket to Portland, Oregon. $211. 2 duffel bags, a box of equipment shipped ahead. I gave my Chicago landlord 30 days' notice. I didn't tell my parents I was leaving until I was already on the train. My mother texted, "Where are you going for work?" I replied, "Pacific Northwest. I'll send an address when I'm settled." She replied 3 days later, "Okay, let us know if you need anything." They didn't ask which city. They didn't ask why. Portland in August felt like a different language. No one knew my family. No one knew the version of me that had been edited down to fit beside my brother's story. I found a 1-bedroom apartment on Belmont, $1,180 a month, 2nd floor, good light. The landlord was a retired teacher who asked no questions and fixed the radiator the same week I moved in. I set up a workspace in the second room. Drafting table, 2 monitors, a shelf of reference books, a decent desk lamp. I freelanced under my own name at first, then began building something else underneath it. A small creative studio. Whitmore Studio, LLC, registered in Oregon, 2020. I used my last name because it was mine first. The first year, I made $51,000 between freelance and just clients. The second year, $89,000. By 2021, I had 2 contractors. By 2022, a full team of 5 offices in a converted warehouse space in the Central East Side. Revenue that year, $1.4 million. I didn't tell anyone in my family. Not because I was hiding, but because they had never asked. And I had stopped volunteering information into silence. Dennis called occasionally. Not often. He had his MBA now, was working at a consulting firm in Chicago, made decent money, lived with his girlfriend in Lincoln Park. Our calls were short and surface level. He'd mention our parents were doing fine. I'd say that was good. He'd ask how Portland was. I'd say gray and beautiful. We'd hang up. In October 2022, one of our campaign projects won a regional Addy Award. A journalist from a design industry newsletter asked to profile the studio. I agreed on the condition that the piece focused on the work and not on me personally. They honored it. The piece ran under the deadline. Whitmore Studio is redefining visual identity for Pacific Northwest brands. My name was in it, my real name. But my parents didn't read design industry newsletters. 2023 revenue, $2.1 million. 2024, $3.3 million. By early 2025, I had a staff of 14, a client list that included 2 regional hospital systems, a national outdoor gear company, and a Pacific Northwest wine collective. A development firm in Seattle, Creston Moreau, approached my attorney in March 2025 about acquiring a 60% stake. The offer, $8.2 million total, $5.4 million upfront, $2.8 million earnout over 18 months. I would stay on as creative director with a 3-year contract at $175,000 annually and retain 40% equity. My attorney, Dori Ninkamelu, whom I'd hired in 2023 and trusted completely, called me on a Tuesday afternoon. "Sable," she said, "this is a real number. This is a life-changing number." I looked out my window at the gray sky over the Willamette. "I know," I said. "Let's move forward." I signed the term sheet April 3, 2025. Due diligence began the following week. The acquiring firm used an outside accounting and legal review team for verification, a mid-size firm in Portland called Harmon & Vetch Associates. I didn't know yet that my brother had just accepted a senior associate position there. April 9, 2025. Wednesday, 6:47 in the evening. I was finishing dinner when my phone rang. My brother's name on the screen. I frowned. He almost never called at night. "Hey," I said. His voice was strange, flat and tight at the same time. Sable, I need to ask you something, and I need you to tell me the truth, okay? Is Whitmore Studio yours? Silence. Denny, I pulled the acquisition file today. I'm on the Creston Moreau review team. The registered owner is Whitmore Studio LLC. Sable Renee Whitmore. That's you, Sable. You built an $8 million company. I set down my fork. Yes. The pause lasted a long time. Why didn't you ever tell us? Because you never asked, I almost said. Instead, because the last time I tried to show our family something I was proud of, they toasted you at my dinner table with my champagne. He didn't say anything for 20 seconds. Then, I'm so sorry. I know. Mom and Dad have no idea. No, they don't. Another pause. Then, quieter. They've been asking about you, Mom especially. She told me last month she's been trying to call and you never pick up. I kept my voice even. I answer every call I get from them. My phone logs don't show calls from either of them in over 2 years. That's not. They said you went silent. Denny, I've been right here. The call lasted 40 minutes. He asked me to explain. I did. Not all of it, not yet, but enough. When we hung up, I sat at my kitchen table and looked at the ceiling for a while. 2 days later, he drove down from Portland's west side to my neighborhood, and we met at a coffee shop on Division Street. He looked tired. He had dark circles and his shoulders were up around his ears when he walked in. He ordered a black coffee, sat across from me, looked at his hands. I called Mom last night, he said. I asked her why you never call. What did she say? She said you pulled away from the family after your promotion, that you moved to Portland and just stopped reaching out, that she's tried and tried. He looked up, but then I went back through my own texts with you. You've always responded. Every time I reached out, you were there. I was just never the one reaching first. I didn't say anything. They told me you were struggling out here. His voice dropped. That you never really found your footing. That design wasn't paying the bills. I let that sit between us for a moment. Then I opened my laptop, turned it toward him, and pulled up our company revenue dashboard, 2020 through 2024. The numbers climbed up the screen like a staircase. He stared at it for a long time without speaking. And you never told them, he said. Would it have mattered? He closed his eyes. No, probably not. Then, what happened? Really? At the beginning. So I told him, not the graduation dinners this time, the whole map, the art portfolio at 10, the bus pass at 16, the $8,000 versus $62,000, the toast, the coat check comment, the silence when I moved, the 2 years of no calls they later described as me pulling away. By the time I finished, his coffee was cold and he hadn't touched it. They don't see it, he said. They genuinely don't see what they did. I know. That doesn't make it okay. No, I said. It doesn't. He was quiet for a moment. What do you need from me? I hadn't expected that question. I sat with it. Nothing yet, I said, but I may need you to be honest when the time comes. Okay, he said. I will be. He meant it. I could tell. What neither of us anticipated was how quickly the time would come. May 3rd, 2025, my father called my brother, not me. He'd been laid off from his real estate firm in March. Market downturn, he said, cost-cutting. The mortgage on the Naperville house had been refinanced twice. Original loan in 2004, $210,000. Current balance, $287,000. House appraised at $268,000. Underwater by $19,000. Credit cards, $34,000. My father had also, my brother would later piece together, taken out a personal loan from a private lender in 2023, $40,000, that had ballooned with interest to roughly $58,000 due. Total, over $111,000 in debt. My father told Dennis he needed $25,000 to stabilize things. A bridge, he called it. Just to get through the next quarter. He'd pay it back. He promised. Dennis called me immediately after hanging up. They're going to come to you, he said. I know. What are you going to do? Wait for it, I said, and document everything. I updated the folder. Added dates, added call logs, added my brother's account written as a summary in his own words, which he agreed to provide. On May 8th, my mother called me. I answered. Sable. Her voice was warm in a way it hadn't been in years. I've missed you, honey. We all have. Your father and I have been thinking about you so much. Hi, Mom. We need to talk about something. Your father is going through a hard time. The real estate market is just brutal right now, and he's between things. We're behind on some bills. It's nothing catastrophic, but it's stressful. A pause. We were thinking, you've always been so resourceful, and we know Portland has treated you well. We were hoping you might be able to help us out, just temporarily. How much? A beat. 25,000. We'd pay it back, Sable. You know us. I held the phone, looked at the wall. Mom, I need a few days to look at my finances. Of course. Take your time. Her voice was already lighter, already relieved. We just knew we could count on you. We hung up. I called Dory. My parents just asked me for $25,000, I said. I want to be careful about how I handle this. Tell me everything, she said. Over the next 2 weeks, my brother did what I had once done alone. He dug. He requested mortgage documents through public records. He talked to a family friend who worked at the same real estate firm and confirmed the layoff and its actual circumstances. My father had not been laid off for cost-cutting. He had been let go in February for conduct issues related to a gambling problem that had been escalating since 2021. Sports betting, primarily. Significant losses. Dennis texted me on May 19th. It's bad, Sable. He's been gambling for years. The $40K private loan was to cover casino debt. There's more he hasn't told Mom, I think. She genuinely doesn't know the half of it. I replied, that's not my problem to solve. He replied, I know. I just wanted you to have the full picture. I had it. I had all of it. Documented, dated, saved in a folder that had been quietly growing for 6 years. On May 22nd, I called my mother back. Mom, I've thought about it. I can't send $25,000. I don't have that kind of liquid cash right now. Neither statement was entirely accurate, but neither was a lie in the way she would understand it. The warmth drained out of her voice like water from a tub. Sable, this is your father. This is family. I know, after everything we did for you, every sacrifice, I stayed quiet. You moved across the country and you never once looked back. You couldn't even call, and now when we actually need something, Mom, I said, I answer every call I receive. My phone records show 2 calls from you in the past 26 months. I've texted you 17 times since January and gotten 4 responses. I'm not sure what looking back was supposed to look like. Silence. I'll be in touch, I said, and I hung up. 3 days later, my mother sent me an email. Subject line, disappointed. It was 4 paragraphs about my selfishness, my abandonment of the family, my ingratitude. The final paragraph stated that they were aware I had been doing well financially, and that refusing to help was a choice that said something about my character. I forwarded it to Dory. She replied within the hour, save everything. I was already ahead of her. On June 2nd, my father sent me a formal email. He had clearly used a template. It referenced parental sacrifice, filial obligation, and reputational harm in the same sentence. It stated that if I refused to provide financial assistance, he would contact my professional network, specifically named my largest client by company name, which he had found through a quick Google search of Whitmore Studio, and inform them that I had abandoned my elderly parents in a time of medical and financial crisis, and was not someone of good character to do business with. He was 58 years old. I read the email twice. Then I called Dory. Oregon extortion statute, she said, before I'd finished reading it aloud. And that's a written threat against a business relationship. He's handed us everything. I don't want to destroy them, I said. I just want them to leave me alone. Then we make the cost of contact very clear. She spent 2 weeks preparing the response. During that time, I kept Dennis informed. He had become, without either of us naming it, my closest ally. He wasn't involved in the legal response, but he knew it was coming. He had provided a written summary of his conversations with our parents. He had confirmed in writing that our mother's account of my silence was false. He had offered to testify if needed. "Are you sure?" I asked him during one of our calls. "Yes," he said, without hesitation. On June 18, 2025, Dory sent the response, certified mail and email simultaneously, 39 pages. Pages 1 through 4, timeline of the estrangement, phone records attached, demonstrating that contact had been minimal and predominantly one-directional. Pages 5 through 14, documentation of the financial disparity in parental support, $8,000 versus $62,000, and the pattern of preferential treatment. Pages 15 through 22, the May 8th phone call transcript. My brother's written account, the email from my father with legal analysis attached. Pages 23 through 31, Oregon and Illinois extortion law, the threat against my client relationship, analyzed in full. Pages 32 through 39, the cease and desist. The final paragraph. Any further contact with my client, her business associates, her clients, or her brother will result in the immediate filing of criminal charges with the Multnomah County District Attorney and civil claims for damages in excess of $400,000. You have 72 hours to confirm in writing that you will cease all contact and withdraw any claims or complaints. Failure to comply will result in immediate legal action. My mother called my brother within an hour of receiving it. Dennis texted me. "She's panicking. Dad's saying it's all a misunderstanding. They want to meet." I typed back, "Fine. One meeting, coffee, neutral location. You're there." "I'm recording," he replied. "I'll be there." June 22, 2025, 10 a.m. A cafe in Evanston, Illinois. I had flown in the night before, stayed at a hotel on my own dime, $167 a night. My brother was already there when I arrived. Corner table, 2 phones face up. My parents walked in at 10:09. My mother's eyes were swollen. My father's jaw was set like he was walking into a negotiation he expected to win. They sat down. My mother started with, "Sable, we're so relieved you came. We've been so worried about you. We just want to talk like a family." I put my phone on the table, recording light visible. "Then let's talk like a family." My father shifted in his seat. "That letter was, we didn't understand what we were signing up for when we reached out. We didn't mean it as a threat. You named my largest client by name and said you'd contact them to damage my reputation. That's the definition of a threat. We were scared, we were desperate. That's not who we are. It's what you did." My mother turned to Dennis. "Sweetheart, help us here. This is getting out of hand." Dennis folded his hands on the table. His voice was steady. "Mom, I went back through my records. Sable has responded every time I've contacted her. She answered tonight when you called. She answered when Dad emailed. She flew here today. She didn't go silent. We did." My mother blinked. "That's not." "I also looked at the tuition numbers," he said. "And I know about the gambling." The silence that followed was the most honest thing I'd heard in years. My father's face went through 4 different expressions. He landed on something close to shame. "That's a private matter. You tried to make Sable's finances a public matter," Dennis said. "So," I slid a printed copy of the cease and desist across the table. "Here's what happens next. You sign the confirmation document, page 39, that you'll cease contact with me, my business, and my staff. You withdraw any complaints. You don't contact my clients. In return, I don't file charges." My mother's eyes filled. "You're really going to cut us off, your own parents?" I looked at her for a moment, at the woman who had said "it's cute" about the work that had been my entire life, at the woman who had texted Dennis about her kitchen renovation the night I'd promoted myself to the top of my field. "You made your choices for 29 years, I said. "I'm making mine now." My father picked up the letter. He read it. His hands were shaking faintly. My mother started crying, real tears. Possibly genuine. "We just wanted our family back. The family you're describing didn't exist, I said quietly. Not for me. Dennis touched my arm briefly. I stood up. He stood with me. You have 72 hours, I said. Dory's information is on page 1. We walked out. My parents didn't follow. Dennis drove me to my hotel. We didn't talk for a while. Then he said, "You've been carrying this alone for a long time." Yes, I'm sorry I didn't see it sooner. You're here now. 3 days later, on June 25th, Dory forwarded me an email from my parents' attorney. 4 sentences. They agreed to all terms. They withdrew all claims. They confirmed they would not contact me, my staff, or my professional network. They requested the matter be considered closed. Dory's note at the bottom said, "Done. Congratulations." I read it standing at my kitchen counter in Portland, still in my pajamas, coffee going cold beside me. I stood there for a while. Then I sat down on the kitchen floor, which is not something I plan to admit to many people, and I cried. Not because I was sad, because it was over, and I had survived it, and I hadn't known until that moment how much energy I had been spending simply bracing for the next thing. July 1st, 2025. The Creston Moreau acquisition finalized. $5.4 million cash transferred to Whitmore Studio LLC's operating account. I sat in Dory's office and watched the wire confirmation come through. She poured 2 glasses of water and handed me one and said, "You built something real." I said, "I know." The first thing I bought was a plane ticket for my brother to come visit Portland. He'd never been. He came the second weekend of July. I took him to Powell's Books. We walked along the waterfront. I showed him the warehouse where my studio was, the offices, the drafting walls with current campaigns pinned to them. He stood in the middle of the space and turned around slowly, taking it in. "You did all of this," he said. "We have a good team," I said. He shook his head. "No. You did this. Don't undersell it." We got dinner at a place on Alberta Street, split a bottle of wine, talked for 4 hours about growing up, about the gaps between us, about what we'd missed, about our parents. A little, though less than I expected. There wasn't much left to say about them, really. The chapter had ended the way it needed to. At one point he said, "I don't know how you stayed so calm." In that cafe. I was sweating through my shirt. "I wasn't calm," I said. "I just wasn't scared anymore." He nodded slowly. "When did that happen?" I thought about it. About the girl who'd walked home from her own dinner, with her coat folded over her arm and her promotion untoasted. About the woman who had bought a one-way train ticket west and built something in the gray, quiet distance between what she came from and what she was becoming. When I stopped waiting for their permission to be proud of myself, I said. He raised his glass. "Then here's to that." We drank. My parents haven't contacted me since June. I don't expect they will. I think they're probably telling a version of this story to the people in their lives, one where they're the misunderstood parents of a cold, ambitious daughter who chose money over family. I can't control that. I couldn't ever. What I can tell you is this. On the morning the acquisition closed, I opened my laptop and deleted the folder labeled Projects. Archive, 6 years of documentation, bank records, email chains, dated notes, screenshots. Gone. Not because I needed it anymore. Because I didn't want to be the person who kept the archive forever. I wanted to be the person on the other side of it. My studio is doing well. My brother and I talk on the phone every Sunday. I am, for the first time in my adult life, unhaunted. My mother once said, standing in the coat check of a restaurant where I'd paid for everyone's dinner, that I'd find something stable, eventually. That design was uncertain. She wasn't wrong about uncertainty. Everything I built was uncertain. Every step, every client, every risk. But that's not what she meant, and we both know it. What she meant was that she wasn't betting on me. I was. That turned out to be enough.